Welcome back to the Fire Break. I say welcome back because I assume you've probably been sitting there binge watching all the episodes and learning all you can about the fascinating people that are out there working on the wildfire problem. As you know, Team Wildfire is sponsored by Team Wildfire. Did I say Team Wildfire? I meant the Fire Break. You know that, right? The Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire, where we're
Mhm.
using jet engines and doing some really cool stuff. Check it out at teamwildfire.com. I've got one of the most well-known celebrities in the wildfire space, and I know people don't like to think of themselves as celebrities. Well, maybe you do. I don't know, but most people think, hey, it's a problem, and we're just doing what we can. And
Yeah.
one of the foremost individuals on that fight is Joaquin Cisneros, and Joaquin is the man behind. He's the president, the CTO of Technosilva. And Technosilva is one of the most popular platforms for figuring out where's the fire and where's it going to be the next. And maybe what do we need to do about it? Joaquin, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hey, thank you, Steve. What an intro. Yeah. No celebrity at all. To be honest, very, you know what? Thankful every day to being able to work in this world, in this challenging world, and with this outstanding community. Yeah.
So tell me about the Technosilva platform. What is it?
Mhm.
How did you develop it? Why did you develop it? And what are the big changes that are coming on it?
Okay. Well, when we started, I just turned 55 now. And the first version of our platform is called, there are three products out of the platform, Fire Response. It's about 24 years old now. So, yeah, I was there a while ago trying to bring technology to the wildfire agencies. I started first back there in Spain. But then I moved here to the US, started to come here 2007, 2009. Yeah, basically we tried to, in Technosilva, where we tried to build from the beginning. We're not the startup, we didn't start yesterday. As I mentioned, company was started in 1997, always with one focus, to trying to create tools and to bring good science, good data to the guys on the ground and to the agencies that need to deal with this problem. To be honest, like 25 years ago, problem was this size. Technology was a little different, but the reality is that we've been learning together with this community, and it's been incredible. I mean, I'm most especially since I started operations here in the US back in 2012. So yeah, uh, so that's when we started. Um, Platform, we can talk a little about the platform as we go, but basically, think about that how to make the technology a tool for firefighting agencies. Is not the technology itself. People is not looking for AI is not a solution, or remote sensing itself is not a solution. Firefighters, fire managers, foresters, planners, what they need is tools to change their processes, to inform on the decision making process, and that's what we try to do. So try to create tools in all the wildfire environment cycle, which is pretty wide. Okay.
Are you say? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I lost audio.
No, no,
Can I
that's
hear
okay.
you?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. You paused.
I did,
Okay.
I, did, I paused a little kind of intro. And also, I want to apologize to your audience because, as you can hear, I have a very strong Spanglish accent. But that's the official accent here in San Diego. So, kind of please forgive me because I couldn't
Not at
improve,
all.
refine.
You have a great Spanish accent, but
Okay.
I bet you could still do a great John Wayne impression, right?
I don't know about that, but
All right, I won't put you on the spot. So, you position the product as another tool. No
Mhm.
tool does everything, but
Yeah,
more tools, can help
yeah,
inform the decision process. So, what happens? I'm going to jump ahead.
yeah.
What happens when there's so much data because a
Oh, yeah,
fire is so big and there's so much technology collecting data about the fire that there's
yeah.
more data than, a team of humans can
You know what
handle?
happens? You know what happens? When that happens, I call it, we get into a level of infoxication, just too much, and then information overload, right? No,
Right.
yeah. What we try to be honest, in Technosilva, we try to identify. I mean, this wildfire business, I always consider it's. I used to say that it's more complex than the war. War, you kind of know, have intel about the enemy. The enemy may have bigger weapons, but there's kind of patterns. There's some kind of understanding what they can do. Then you have your intel. Intel is super important in the war business, right? And then, well, if you have a bigger team, more strength, more ammunition, more weapons, more better tactics, then you can, okay, eventually you can hit the red button and say, okay, here we go. We're gonna crush this operation, right? Fires, unfortunately, is not like that, and we see in the ones that have been in the business for a long time, they see what's going on, right? It's been in the last, I say, the last 15 years, we just wasted that word too much for using it so much. Unprecedented, right? Well, everything is kind of unprecedented, right? Fires outside the typical fire season, extreme events simultaneous at the same time. So I had during my last 3 years, I've served as a president of the International Association of Wildfire. Now we have a fantastic Kelly Martin that took that role, but that made me like my big emphasis was to look at the more international level, because it's not only what's happening in the Western U.S. It's this year what we have Canada, right? What happened in Canada just can't surpass any kind of imaginations. Like about 50 million acres, right, of timber forest, fantastic. But then we have Greece, and we have Portugal 2 or 3 times, Australia 2009, 19. Really, everything is kind of huge and bigger and more frequent. And obviously in the West, we have California 2020, 2018, 2017, 2021, kind of every year is a pass, right? So we are facing that business initially kind of the same way that we're trying to face that business in the 70s and the 80s, more resources, more aircraft, more engines, better prepare or biggest ground force. But the reality is that the biggest need is to be able to work before the fire happens. During the fire situation, work with intelligence, but intelligence doesn't become that kind of overloading of information, as you mentioned, right?
Right.
So the challenge is, well, we live in an incredible time in terms of technology. I teach a class on technology on wildfires in university in Europe since 15 years ago, and every year is like more and more, right? We have more sensors, we have more models, we have more GIS applications, we have machine learning, AI, sensoring for individuals. But at the end of the day, it's more and more and more information. That doesn't become more intel. And it's not only more, it's better. It's also how you deliver and to whom you deliver. Not everybody needs the same information, right? The crew leader in the ground needs a piece of information, and actually that is delivered in a way that is operational and actionable for him. And maybe the duty officer in an emergency center or in a geographic coordination area, they need the style pieces of information that could set up priorities for when they're dealing not with one fire, they're dealing with 600 fires that happened in 2020, right? So on one side, capture good information, process and extract the data, and then deliver to every stakeholder what they need. No more, no less.
Right.
Giving less information is as bad as giving too much information, because then all of a sudden, why do I need 20 layers for this? No, I need this, right? I need this piece of information that is meaningful. And for that, the technologies will need to work very closely with the end users community. On one side, technologies, we are lucky because we try to work with the best scientists, even doing science ourselves, to try to understand what is the more actionable science that really, because science is not all of it has to be operational. Some of the science we need, basic research from our folks in NASA and the Fire Lab in San Jose State. We need those kind of researchers advancing the science, and then we need to say, okay, just keep on going, guys. Don't be disrupted by trying to go to the technology side. We'll help you on the technology and try to distill to the users what the to what we think that we need and listen from them. Right? Because scientists are driven by, by grants, by research projects. Users are driven by the business, and technologies were in the middle. We need to listen to them. And you as a technologist, you know exactly that. We need to look for, or you need to look for the best, engineering, the best mechanics, the best solutions for hydraulics, or all the part of on that side. But at the end of the day, we need to listen to those folks on the ground or folks on the operation center. And those are the ones that will tell me, oh yeah, all that is very good, but what I need is this. I need an answer to this. I need an answer. What is this fire going to do in the next 4 hours? Which are my windows of opportunity, right? Should I put a fourth of aerial resources in this fire, or should I just wait because there's no something? There's not going to be a meaningful results of the action that we're planning. That kind of the amazing business that we're in. To be honest, we're lucky. Here in the US, we started operations in Texas, in the state of Texas in 2011. Now, this week we've been busy with Texas after what happened on the Smoke Creek fire too. We learned there to work in the South to deal with simultaneity. They had that fire season. They had 34,000 fires and 4 million acres. Sometimes we forget about the South, but sometimes they have these kind of outbreaks, right? And then we started to learn how to deal with the fire in the South, and then I started working in the West. And 2019, we were selected by CAL FIRE amongst 131 proposals to try and provide technology for, where the fire is going to go, what can we do about it, what is the risk in the state, how to collaborate between many, hundreds of agencies that have to collaborate in big events in California. We implemented successfully one of our solutions, the wildfire analysis for the modeling, tactical analysis for managing these incidents with multi-agencies like a next generation COP. And if we done anything right, is because we were working with these partners, right? Listening to them and evolving every year and learning with them all the time. So to your question at the beginning, I think it was clear is that, for example, one of the things that is more visual of one of the things that we do is the wildfire prediction, right? Wildfire simulation. Oh, well, the fire is going to do this, it's going to do that, right? Those evolutions of time and space where the fire is moving through the landscape. To be honest, I never considered that a product. I think that's just a piece of information for an analyst. But we are doing every day, in every incident, every lightning strike, every hotspot clustering, every information coming from the fire guard, we're doing a one-pager simple report that distill the simulation and gets to one-pager what the firefighter needs to assess what's going on there. That is a perfect example of what is giving the right amount of information to a professional that just needs simple but solid answers, right? But yeah, hope that answered a little your question. We're living an incredible time of technology and all that. It's all good, but it's all about tools that help them to do a better job, right?
Right. So tell me, when you talk about simulation, you're talking about, you have sensors and observational technology, right?
Yeah.
Cameras, sensors, satellites, wind information, ground moisture, vegetation, humidity, etc. Right? All these sensors feed in to the model, and then they tell you as close as possibly what's the fire going to do, and what are the values at risk that are downrange, and how many minutes downrange are they? Right.
Yeah.
So when you are, and then somebody has to figure out, okay, well, what are we going to do about that? Right. What can we do about it? What's the best thing to do about it? So when you do simulations, are you able to include in the simulation the impact of the means of intervention? If we drop the aerial tanker load here, if we dig a line here, right, then how does that change the simulation? And how do you incorporate the impact of the intervention on the simulation going forward?
Yeah, it's a hard and easy question to answer. Hard on one side because the simulation is basically you get on one side data needed to run a model that gives you results, right? So it's three parts out of it, right? you need good data inputs that matches the needs of the model, right? In this case, for simulation is the fire spread, right? That's the general model.
Right.
On the models that we run for operational warfare simulations, you combine, there's a kind of main spread models of the fires that there are plenty of them. I used to say that we're model agnostic, to be honest. If tomorrow we'll get another model, a better model, we use it. And we are learning every time, and there's a fantastic effort from the scientific community to give better models to the users, right? But the reality is that any model to become part of an operational procedure, well, it has to be operational. That means that the data that it needs to run the model, it has to be operational, it has to be available. It has to be affordable too, not all the data. Well, yeah, you know what? We have a model that works really very well with readings coming from satellites that give us hyperspectral information of vegetation. I said, oh yeah, that's great. And the model performed very well, phenomenal. Yeah, we don't have any of those satellites. So, okay, then the model is not operational, right?
Right.
So we always have to work with something that is operational. Is give me a model that uses weather data, the best weather data possible, the best information about the vegetation possible, the best information about the terrain and the assets and the value of a risk possible, that takes into consideration all of that. Run the model in operational time. What is operational time? Operational time, when I started working on this, was, okay, give me answers in 5 minutes. That was in 2007. Give me one answer in 5 minutes. That would be outstanding. Because by that time, the operational running a far side simulation, a medium size, it could take 30 minutes to run, plus about 1 hour or 2 hours an expert to prepare the data. So we're thinking about 3 hours, and that was pretty good, to be honest, to run one simulation. I said, okay, wait, we need to get to 5 minutes, right? Now we're in the seconds, like 10, 15 seconds for one simulation, but we run every day about 500 billion, 500 million simulations every day, covering the whole Western US, to be ready to show to the agencies where the potential problems may happen in a 3-hour basis all over the landscape, right? So that's a lot. That's a lot of modeling.
So
right?
it's a lot of IFTT, right? If there's a fire here, then we
If
respond
there's a
here.
fire here, how
If it
many
evolves
acres, how
there,
many houses?
here's how it's going to spread. Right.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But there are some models that are fantastic, like the one that we're working. I think the best model out there, which is a fire couple model run by San Jose State, is called the Warface Fire or Wax Fire. Adam Kochansky, Craig Clemens, and his crew, they're amazing, and that's probably the best model out there. It's a fire couple model, right? It runs the fire and also integrates what the atmospheric conditions are. They interact together. But that's you don't run one simulation in seconds. You run one simulation in several hours, and you need a supercomputer with thousands of computer cores to run one simulation. So it's great, but it has different applications because the running time is different, which is phenomenal because it helps us on the science, but you cannot use it for a firefighter on the ground, say with your mobile phone, okay, what the fuck am I gonna do here, right? And then you get the result. You ask me, okay, what did you do with suppression? Suppression activities typically are not model. I'm gonna be clear, are not model because there's not reliable data yet on the effectiveness of suppression operations. As today, 2024, to build a model that works in all the different scenarios that we have on a fire, that includes suppression effectiveness of, for example, working with 2 engines and a dozer, and combination with a bucket drops every how many time, or doing also some backburn, some firing operations. All those operations, they have the hope to stop the fire when they do it, or stop or reduce the speed of the fire. Okay. Typically, you include those by adding into the scenario, and you can do it in real-time operations. Okay, we're going to do this here, we're going to do this here, and then we're going to focus on this area here. So there are some, it's called agent-based modeling models that we could use to do those kind of what if we put all these resources. And there's been research in the past in Canada, in the US. There's been some specific works done with dozer operations, aerial operations, efficiency of very large air tankers operations, things like that. But not really like a holistic combination of suppressions all together. Because to be honest, at the end of the day, you can do a what if with one action, with some aerial drops or some, some work like the one that you can do with the non-wildfire tool. But the reality is that that could help on the training phase, on the planning phase, on the preparedness phase. Because in operations, the complexity of the operations that we may support, especially in large incidents, where we may be facing operations with 4 aircrafts, 100 engines, the complexity, to be honest, of potential production rates of those machines still not there. And the reality is still not there because, for example, our friends in the US Forest Service, defense agencies, and some others, we don't have the data to build the modelers to build models. So when someone tells me, hey, can you do a model for suppression? I can say, yes, just give me the data. We'll do anything you want.
Right. So we need data on what on average, what will a VLAT drop do under these conditions? What will a Type 6 tanker do? What will a Type 1 engine do? Right. And because if we're playing chess against the fire, which is how I think of it, we know what a rook does. We know what a knight does. We know what a king and a queen does. So we have some basic ideas about, what the capability of each asset are. And even if you don't have like the most specific to the condition, you have a pretty good idea. Okay, a tank, a fire truck with 2,000 gallons climbing a 40-degree angle, it's going to take so long to get there. On average, with these nozzles, it'll take this long to disperse the water. Here's what we would expect the results of that to be, because we don't do suppression ever without an expectation of what that action is going to do. So we have some basic idea of what we think each apparatus or each operation or a dozer operation, we have an idea what we think it's going to do. We could quantify that into data, but like we have a good starting point. Now we might need manufacturing specifications on, how much can it carry at this angle, etc. Right? But we should be we need to be able to start with our assumptions about what things do and then be able to plug them into the model, because you have 100,000, 200,000 acre fire. You have, let's say, 200 pieces of equipment to use. You need a model to tell you really what's the most efficient way to apply each asset to the fire. And right now, I think that's all done manually.
Well, that's obviously we have the guys in the teams, the level of expertise that we have in Wildfire Task Force, the people in operations and planning, we are really good people.
That's because you're in California and you have Cal Fire, right? But when you take that same situation and you put it in, in a country that's not used to wildfires, how do we distill the wisdom of all of those Cal Fire guys into some type of AI that could help people who don't have the experience?
I mean, we can be the transfer on that, but I'm going to tell you one thing. We deliver models, and you won't find someone more skeptical than me to deliver a model if it's not robust in data. Because if something I've learned of this community is that if we don't give them something that improves their procedures, which are pretty good, they will say, okay, keep working, buddy. Come back later when you have a better solution, right? So what I asked, for example, 2017, I did a presentation on Missoula that was about just starting basic data, right? Basically, the presentation is why on earth we're not tracking our firefighters in the ground. And that was 5 years after Yarnell tragedy, right? Where we lost all those Granny Hodgson Mountain guys on the field. 2024, it's 11 years, and still many of the operations that we are facing here in the US, not only, we don't have the basic data for not only performance of operations. Let's come to the basics: safety, situational awareness from the guys on the field, bottom up, but also for the people that could provide support in a similar scenario. Thunderstorm conditions, changing fire conditions. We improve a lot with, for example, the data coming from the fire guard, what the fire is doing, on all of that, but still the guys on the ground. Cal Fire has people tracking, many agencies has it, but many agencies doesn't. So we don't know where the people is. We don't know where the fire is. And thanks God we have fire guard that is telling us where the fire mostly is all the time. How the heck are we gonna? We need to start, as we say in the country. You need to start your building from the foundation. Yeah. And the foundation is where the fire is, where the fire wants to go, where are our crews, where are our guys on the field, and what are their capabilities. And the capabilities, that's what it counts with your question about performance. On the performance, yes, we know average performance of any kind of those resources. The important thing to do is improve the models a little, have real examples that could buy our people in operations to say, okay, well, yeah, look at this model. This model is working. In the fire that you were, they have all these resources. This was your performance. And it was just performance. The performance on fire suppression is a race, right? It's a race of the growth rate of the fire perimeter. That's one race. The fire is growing. Yep. So the fire is growing 2 miles, 3 miles an hour. That's the perimeter that you have to stop. And the race of you trying to suppress that perimeter. What is your strongest? What's your best performance on suppressing fire? And typically, some numbers. Marcus knows some others worldwide have done some numbers. I mean, agencies go from 1 kilometer an hour to 1.5 tops. Yeah. Kilometers an hour, 1 mile an hour. That's a lot of suppression capability. So that's the race. Can we win that race? How can we win it?
You can't win that race. No.
I tell you, the race that you're going to win, that's the Texas one that went to Oklahoma and made 90 miles in a couple of runs, right? Right. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop. Yes, the questions that you ask are absolutely fair. We need to be able, well, first of all, answer what the fire is going to try to do. We published a paper last July. I'm super, to be honest, happy about that paper. It's in our website on the scientific research. It's the first time that we validated operational warfare modeling on the fire line. The models used here in the US based on the Missoula Fire Lab work in the 70s and others, or Rothermel and others. That model was created with about 200 fires and experiments. We've evaluated more than 2,000 fires with data every 10 minutes. Just an incredible data coming from Cal Fire, our fire guard, and our team. Cal Fire put together an Intel section, research data specialist section. That Intel group is led by Chief Phil Selig. There are more than 70 people. They are not only, the tools and the data and the technology. They have real specialists working. That their role is to work with Intel, work with weather data, with sharing that information with partner agencies, with the public, getting the modeling, talking with the people of operations, from the CAD, from different sensors, putting all of that together. And that's I think that's the way to go, right? To provide that kind of, on one side, that intel, and it has to go to audience that needs to how to put that into work into the organization, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's amazing because I tell you, every day we're just finding new challenges. So yeah. It's weather. I mean, we just acquired a company. Well, we acquired 2 companies, one in Canada. And of course, the Canadian do different modeling, but they have the same problem. But it's different model, different science. That's okay. Technologies and tools could be the same. So we've been working in British Columbia last year, and Cal Fire personnel was supporting there. And yeah, it's at the end of the day, the problems are the same. Have our firefighters safe, have communities safe, reduce the potential impacts of the fires, and be proactively working on having a more resilient landscape, saying all over the
Yeah,
place.
right.
Um,
Well,
but
we
yeah,
I think it's always useful when we question the questions that we're asking
yeah,
to see, are we asking the right questions, right? We talk about fire suppression. Well, you said, a good team working all out, they could suppress maybe 1.5 kilometers of fire an hour. And we're talking about fires with, multi-100,000 kilometer perimeters. So the
yeah,
question really isn't about fire suppression. It's about asset protection.
yeah.
And right, reframe, what do we need to do to keep these things that we love from burning up?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to put out the whole fire.
Well, that's true. I mean, to be honest, we've been living with that. I'm glad, to be honest, since my time in the IWF also helped me to see, uh, stop a little from the day by day, doing the technology, and I say, okay, let's stop a little. Let's see what's going on out there. And what I see
Yeah.
out there is there's a big change on the society. There's you start to listen, better messaging, right? I think that people is understanding that the quality, the level of our firefighting task force, there's some areas that we probably are reaching, a level of excellence that is hard to surpass or to keep. Obviously, I think that all the process, always learning. It's always easy to, finding a place to learn, finding, what these agencies do with others. I mean, all these exchanges that are being done. We're going to have the meeting on IWA. We're going to have a meeting in Boise, in Idaho, in Tralee, Ireland, and in Canberra, in Australia. It's going to be the Forest and Fires Behavior Conference. There's going to be a technology track. It's going to be 15 to 19 of April. People all over the world are gonna share the experiences and advances, no? But the reality is that we start to listen more and more. That we need to understand that we need to become a more resilient to fire. Because to be honest, uh, we're not gonna win that battle
No.
just by thinking that fighting uh, is the way
Right.
to go. It's more, accepting, adapting, being more resilient, identifying where we are weak before this happens, because we know that it's going to happen, right? We know that we're going to
Right.
have it. If we look in an area that hasn't have healthy vegetation management in the past or healthy use of fire in the past, the fires are going to face a landscape that is going to have overloaded, overstored fuels in drier conditions, especially the farther north that we go. I'm looking at for you in Colorado. You go northern, we have timber, we have stress conditions. I was really, really sad when I saw the impacts of the bar beetle on the Rockies. It's just heartbreaking. And that fuel is ready, right? And when it starts, it's not gonna wait to stop it. So as a communities, we have to be better at being more resilient communities. And we're not talking about 30 feet around our home or 100 feet around our home. We need to think about buffers around communities and buffers that are around miles, right? Miles of open areas that don't create an incredible shower of, of, of embers into our communities that will make the efforts of the firefighters just impossible to find where to stop it, right? So we need to live with fire, and to also do those kind of things. We also need to, where do we start, right? Or how we convince someone to say, you know what, yeah, you have a beautiful forest, but you know what, my friend, this is what the fire may do, and that's one of the most beautiful things that I think we can use the fire modeling just to show what if. Because if you
Yes.
haven't gone through that, you don't realize really what's going on. You may hear in the news that we have these tragedies in Marshall on Marshall Fire in Boulder, or we have those what happened in the West. But if you don't live with that, the ones that went through that, they know how to live with fire now. They know they have to be resilient, and they know that they don't have to put all the pressure into the firefighters' shoulders. We as a community, we have to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. It's okay to put thank you firefighters, but the best way to say thank you to the firefighters is to be ready, is to go when they tell you to go, is to support your local group to do some prescribed burns in an area that you thought, oh, it's so beautiful, this forest, but you know what? It's not a sustainable forest if we don't do all those kind of work. So it's an all year round job, right?
Right.
And also that connects to our firefighting task force, which I really feel that they are always at the center of my heart. Is that okay? Yeah, I hate when we talk about seasonal firefighters. I mean, that's a year-round job. Come on. I mean, if it's seasonal, that means that you only work during the fire season. What? There's nothing to do outside the fire season. There's not a lot that needs to be done with prescribed burns, with preparing our communities, mitigation, being resilient. Come on, right? So
Right.
part of that modeling that we do, try to support on that or show how, guys, don't wait to the fire. Be ready before, right? We did a paper on how predictable most of the fires that we have are. Not wait till the fire happens. Just do it in advance and be ready for that. And yeah, that's a fascinating topic. That it will gain us much more than just putting our forks in the line under really bad conditions with not good intel. Yeah, so it's that, Steve, there's so much to be done. It's amazing.
Yeah, there is so much going on. It's an exciting time. You talked about creating fire breaks to protect against ember cast. In the Fort McMurray fire, when the fire jumped the half-mile river, I mean that kind of put the rest the idea, that you could make any fire break big enough to make a difference, right? If you have ember cast that goes 40 miles, we're
Yeah,
not going to surround a moat of 40
yeah,
miles wide around every community, right? So what are your thoughts about chemical mitigation? Instead of cutting down the trees, treating the flammable areas to make them less
Steve.
flammable.
I like Stephen Pines. I love Stephen Pines. My books that I have here. Probably
Yes.
40% of those books are Steve Pines.
All
And I
right.
like what he says. He says that we need all the tools in our toolbox, all
Yeah,
of them.
that's right.
And there's not only one that is gonna solve us all.
No.
And we need them all. When fire breaks are useful. You know what? Not to stop the fire, which is actually, you know what? Uh, I I think that we have some of the problems that we have to explain our language to the citizens. It comes from the terminology that we use, which I don't think is very accurate, to be honest, and it could be a
Yeah.
little misleading because a fire break is not gonna break the fire. It's
Right.
gonna typically the firefighters know that it's gonna give them an opportunity to start, firing operation, right? For example, right? Or trying to do tactics or having that a potential control lines for tactics on operations. So everybody knows that in the conditions that we are on fields, 50, 50 yards is not enough, right? But it will give
No.
operations an opportunity, for maybe, okay, let's leave this 10,000 acres, but we can start operations here with this fabric. Just to give an example, right?
Yeah.
When I talk about protecting our communities, I'm talking about depending on we know exactly what is the historical weather condition within an area. And give you an example, Santa Rosa. We know Santa Rosa weather. We know that wind events, Diablo wind events, similar to what happened on the Task Fire 2018, were exactly the same conditions that happened with Hanley. And you know what? Those conditions happen eventually. It may happen yearly, right?
Right.
So you think about this, uh, uh, an event that happens once or twice a year. It's a return period of 1 year, right? And when you talk on floods, the return period of 100 years means that that's the floodplain of a community, floodplain on a river that happens and it surpasses one every 100 years. And you
Right.
know what? Many of the planning of communities or new developments they don't allow you to do things in your 100-year floodplain or your 50-year floodplain. It's something that happens once every 50 years, right? What would you say if you apply the same risk concept from floods, natural hazard, to fires, natural hazard, right? Well, we can
Yeah.
have fire planes around communities, and those fire planes around me to prevent those fires to impact not only with the embers, because the embers may come from 40 miles away. To be honest, if they come for 40 miles away, that's okay. But we have time. We don't have the big fire from coming, right? But maybe that means that we need to make buffers around communities of miles. You have to, instead of close forest or close shrubs, close chaparral around my community, maybe we have to open it and
Yeah.
change it into a more open savanna kind of style, sustained by grazing or
Yep.
burns. And that will provide a buffer to a community, right? But put that together with any kind of tools in our toolbox. You mentioned chemical. Absolutely. I know the utilities are working on doing chemical treatments on their poles, having, just sprinklers around homes, or doing a wise selection or maintenance of your home in terms of, you can do a lot, but I'm being also smart, right? You can do whatever you want, but you leave a door open or a window open, then it's done, right? So the micro situations of that you get with an ember storm, you can mitigate in general,
Yeah.
and yeah, absolutely, right. But to be honest, good listening to having a community that understands to follow orders, and that trains. It's not that you have an evacuation plan. Any plan is not implemented unless it's fully adopted. That means training. That means training every year, right? So you
Or every
are
day.
ready,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you are ready. You decide, or you unfortunately live in an area that you are exposed to several hazards. It's part of your responsibility as a citizen to really understand and get ready. Get ready for a proper evacuation. Have your staff ready to go, right? Well, anyways, I mean, we're jumping things, but as you can see, for me, it's such a big problem that technology is just going to be part of it. Super
Yeah.
excited and super happy and thankful to work on parts of it. But at the end of the day, it's so important that we face the social part, that we get we get an informed society, city officials that really are conscious of their environment. When they wanna, we live in everybody wants to live here. Everybody wants to have a home. Well, let's provide city developments that are affordable, but also they are resilient. It's not that we're going to put a firefighting station in every one development. No, it's firefighting station and 10,000 commitment to 10,000 acres of treatment around my community, 1,000 acres every year. That should
Right.
be part of our. We have to provide that kind of ammunition as a community so we have an environment that is sustainable, because yeah, you live in Boulder,
Yeah.
right? What can I
Yeah.
tell you, right?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about something that happened last week, that I thought might hold a lot of promise for fire technology. When the Texas Panhandle fire threatened the Pantex nuclear missile plant, this was a and it threatens Vandenberg Air Force Base every year, to the degree that wildfires threaten military assets. I hope that we're more likely to see more military involvement in developing new wildfire technology. Because if wildfires were fought by the military instead of by civilian teams, I think you would have a billion times the technology you have right now. You'd have the funding, you'd have the people, you'd have the resources, right? When it threatens a military operation or military base or military preparedness, now you see all kinds of money thrown into it. And then
Yeah.
then you'd have a satellite detects the fire and a big missile comes and it blows the fire out, and everyone stays home and goes home to their children.
Well, you know what? I come from Spain. 2005 in Spain, the military. We had a big disaster with oil spill, huge in the coast, and then the government by that time they decided to create out of the army a military emergency unit, right? They start with the oil spill, and then what they found is that okay, well, there's no natural hazards or disasters every day. What happens every day? Fires. So they focus on all kind of incidents, but the training was coming on the fires, and it took them the military approach to firefighting, which is first of all, we are not the first responders; we support the first responders. I think that was wise. It took them about, I say, probably 10 to 12 years to be considered and to remove all the frictions with the agencies that work already on the field. But to be honest, that was a different scenario that we have here in the US. Because we have firefighting in Spain, many firefighters in Europe, many firefighters agencies that have been there for a long time, like the French and all of that. But the kind of we are not such a large organizations and maybe younger. So the military came, they found this place, and yeah, they came with for example, they are providing the best communications technology that I've seen. That's great.
Right.
X-band communications, different satellites for doing. Actually, the satellites that the Spaniards developed, they were acquired by the US. Now, X-band satellites are used here in the US, not in Spain anymore. They were bought by the US. It was funny. They were developed at that time. The military, they know. I mean, I told you that my first work was in Texas, but that is not true. My first job was my first contract with a military contractor, and it was to work with the Marines and the Camp Pendleton Marines base here in San Diego County. That is Southern California. Well, you can imagine that Southern California between Orange County and San Diego County, it's a fireplace. Well,
Yeah.
actually, it's such a fireplace that they have, as an average, in the last 50 years, one fire every day. Why? Because firing operations is their business. So, okay,
Yeah.
you start fire, right?
Right.
You know how many homes have Marine Corps have lost in Camp Pendleton in the last 15 years with a fire every day? We're talking about thousands of fires.
How many?
Homes lost.
How many?
Zero.
0.
So, do military know we deal with fire? I think they do.
Yeah, I think so.
Obviously, they work with all the partner agencies, right? But they have a long experience of working with fire and also making sustainable firing operations, fire school, and all of that. Gabriel Goodman was the fire ecologist in base that really started to learn with him, and he's in charge of marine operations on all these topics. They know. And actually, one of the big things that we got in the last, one of the tiny little things that are huge game changers, I mentioned that, is that FireGuard project, it is giving us fire progression now in Conus every 10 minutes of every fire in the landscape. That's managed by California National Guard and then the National Guard with their program. That's probably a drop in the bucket of the technology that military can put there. So I would say that in terms of intel, yeah, I trust that they can provide a lot. In the terms of firefighting, I'll be like, okay, I'd say that we can learn a lot, you know what, from how they live with fire in their bases. They have Fort Hill in Virginia. They've done a fantastic prescribing program. So they know and they deal with fire a little better than we think they do. I tell you that. Obviously, it's fantastic to have them with us and learn with them. I think that Chief Selig, he always tells me that he works very closely with the military partners and they learn a lot. And I think it's to be honest, it's an all hands job. So all the good things that may come from them will be welcome, right? we tracked the fire in Texas since the moment that it started. It was a predictable fire. It was not a complex fire to follow, but it was an incredible fire for the magnitude, right? And we just keep on learning, right? That we have to be ready for those extreme events. We're living on the stream. The stream now is not a surprise, right? My last article on the IWF and Wildfire magazine was about the Lahaina fire. Who could have thought that in paradise we could have such a terrible disaster? And the reality is that, well, yeah, actually, yes, science explains that thing. So we have to be ready for that.
Yeah, fascinating. It's a very interesting time to be working on this problem.
Yeah. You know what? It's better than when I started with my GPS that was like 30 or 40 pounds in the back just to measure a little line. And now everything is in our phone. So technology, you know what? I used to say that at the beginning, technology wasn't, it really didn't perform. Technology was far away from the needs, right? Right now is not the case. I think that technology is out there. Now the challenge is more like, okay, coming back to initial questions, right? How we make these things make a change, make an impact, how we help the agencies, the industry, how they can adopt better intel. And that's our responsibility right now. Just have to the style and make better tool, right? So that's fascinating time to be working right now. Agree.
It is. Joaquin, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. Anybody who wants to know, what's going on the cutting edge of wildfire prediction technology, you need to follow Joaquin and read what he's writing and stay up to date with the work coming out of Technosilva. Really great work. Thank you so much, Joaquin. I really appreciate
Steve,
it.
thank you so much.
Joining me
To be honest, really want to praise you for not only being an innovator, but also putting the energy to communicate. We as a community we need to communicate better, and that's for the work that you do. To be honest, it's out of your own passion and commitment to this community. So thank you a lot. Thanks a lot, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to chat. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Joaquin. I appreciate that. And communication is everything because you talked about all this. This agency knows this agency knows that.
Yeah,
Unless we're all talking to each other,
yeah.
it doesn't do a good a bit. It's
We need
a
to
good
learn so much from
get a
each other.
good.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Joaquin. I look forward to continuing, and we'll chat again soon, folks. You've been listening to, or hopefully watching, so you can see the incredibly attractive Joaquin Cisneros here. And we'll see you on the next episode. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire. Check us out at teamwildfire.com. And by the way, you can find all these episodes on our website. Thanks again. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Be safe out there.